Welcome to Yin Yoga Lifestyle. I am your host, Colette Darville. Cultivating our body's resilience and inner silence and its application to all aspects of your life. Let's become enlightened and enjoy the power of intuitiveness and creativity. You are listening to Society Bites Radio, social interaction for the mind and soul. Hello, and thank you for joining us today. I am your host, Colette Darville, and this is Yin Yoga Lifestyle. So now let us take a deep meditative breath. Inhale, so. Exhale, hum. Leah Kinsella, originally from Ireland, has been a student of yoga since 2000 and teaching since 2007. Leah teaches from her own dedication to the practice of ParaYoga and has been fortunate enough to have high-caliber teachers like Rod Stryker, Brent Anderson, Jack Kornfield, and Sally Kempton. Her direct link to the Himalayan tradition provides the method she teaches called Sri Vidya tantra, which was traditionally an oral tradition and is handed down from teacher to student. Leah teaches as she has been taught by her teacher, Yogarupa Rod Stryker, using time-tested ancient methods in today's modern world. Today, you can find Leah teaching at festivals, leading online meditation trainings, and taking her clients on international retreats. Her capacity to take years of dedicated learning and translate it for her client makes Leah's approach accessible and functional. Leah focuses on meditation, nidra, pranayama, and self-inquiry. She is nationally certified ParaYoga instructor, in Polestar Pilates trained, a Yoga Alliance continuing education provider, and ACC level ICF coach, and soon to be Search Inside Yourself Institute graduate. Leah's mission is to help others live a healthier and happier life using self-awareness techniques, meditation, and life coaching to achieve the perspective and clarity, the desire to live their very best life. Welcome to Yin Yoga Lifestyle, Leah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Great to be here.
You discovered yoga about 20 years ago, and you've been teaching yoga and meditation since 2007. How did you get started on this career path?
Thank you. Well, it's always takes me back to when I actually was just graduating from college, and I graduated with a degree in business, oddly enough, and was working for American Express, oddly enough. And I think for almost 8 years, I was working in an office, behind a computer on the phone, as you do. But every day after 9 to 5, when the office would close, I'd hop in my car and drive to the local yoga studio. This was in San Diego, California. And they kindly realized how dedicated I was. And they said, if you show up 5 minutes earlier and just sign people in, this was before Mindbody and all the software, do it by pen and paper, we will give you free classes. And
wow.
So it was great. So that became an exchange of mine for close to 10 years. And I was getting close to my 30s. I was about 27, 28. And I just thought, I really don't enjoy sitting at this desk anymore. But what I do enjoy is going to the yoga classes. So I thought, why not try teaching yoga? Why not try teaching some sort of fitness at the time? And basically what I did is I signed up for my first Pilates training, working around my 9 to 5 job. So I'd wake up at 6 in the morning and teach training students. And then I'd go back at 7 o'clock at night and I'd have to take lessons. And this went on for close to 2 years.
Wow.
And then I finally made the leap close to 13 years ago, and I have not looked back.
Wow. That's quite, so it happened very naturally for you though. right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the ParaYoga, now that's a traditional Himalayan style of yoga and meditation. And you decided you wanted to study and learn this method. And you have had some incredible instructors like Rod Stryker and Brent Anderson, Jack Kornfield, and Sally Kempton. How was it learning from such leaders in the industry?
It's interesting. I have to say, and I feel very fortunate because there's some sort of inner compass in me that is directed towards these types of teachers.
Mhm.
And these are teachers who they've had their own personal practice for over 30 years. And I'd say there's a common thread between all of them, and they don't have the ego to prove anything anymore. There's a certain casualness. There's a great deal of respect, which I think which is available from the teacher as well as from the students. We all pick up on it, but
Mhm.
there's a certain ease to them. They've done the work, they understand the amount of time it takes, and they're not trying to force anything on anyone. They're really just there as almost messengers, yet they have a tremendous amount of knowledge and wisdom. So I always feel very held in these types of teachers' arms because they are living it. They are truly embodying the work that they do. They have the resources. And at the same time, like I mentioned, they're not overly rigid or orthodox about it, which I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
and you find that when people are comfortable and are comfortable with life in general, they tend to be like that, right? They
Mm-hmm.
tend to be very. It's almost like there's an ebb and flow to their the way they are in life,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is so wonderful. And I know that you know, I have a question, big question. How
Mm-hmm.
does the Himalayan style of meditation, which you teach, it's called, and I hope I don't butcher this, Sri Vidya Tantra.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how does that differ from standard meditation methods, which most people practice? Because there are so many types of
Mm-hmm.
meditation, right?
Yeah, you're right. And there's so much available today via applications, apps, or the phone, or YouTube, or whatever. Um, the more ancient practices have a philosophy behind them that is time tested and has been studied and documented. And the Sri Vidya Tantra is basically the main philosophy is it tells us that our body, our mind, our senses, and the universe are designed on exactly the same pattern. So
Mm.
anything that exists in the universe also exists in our body. And through the techniques or the practices of the Sri Vidya meditations, basically, these are tools and means for experiencing an internal joy and beauty that is right inside the human body. Essentially, our light, our soul, is already on, it's already awake. It's just sometimes in life we may get lost or things may get foggy. So let's use these tools, let's use these practices in embodying the philosophy and the respect to reignite that light that is essentially already within us.
Wow, that's beautifully said.
Thank
Beautifully
you.
said. And many people, when first trying meditation, and there's so many people out there because right now we are looking for peace and quiet because of what's going on in our world today, with the virus and with uncertainty and anxiety. Um, so some people are trying first time trying meditation,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes they give up because they cannot quiet their little monkey minds, as we say. What tips can you offer us to get over this issue? I mean, how can we learn to clear our minds and focus on our breath if we're in such turmoil?
Mm-hmm. I love this question, and thank you for asking it. First of all, I would say you don't have to clear your mind. You're off the hook.
Ah,
Uh,
that's a big deal
it's a
then.
big
That's good.
deal. Yeah, I mean it's hard. It's hard to do that. And my biggest advice would be make friends with your mind. We're not trying to delete certain aspects of our personality or our memories or our past. It's more about gaining perspective, make friends with the parts of you that endure, that are always going to be there, and ultimately learn how to develop an awareness which may simply come just from sitting in your thoughts and sitting in your feelings, but not running from it, learning how to be comfortable with it. And then giving yourself permission to maybe giggle here and there because you're thinking,
Right.
my goodness, why am I thinking about this?
Yeah.
And we do not have to delete our thoughts. That would be very, very, very challenging to do. So for the new meditators, I say give yourself permission to think and just be still. It's just start with
Yeah.
stillness. Yeah.
Because it's very interesting how many I think back when I first started to meditate, that sort of you have a mantra, or you're concentrating on your breath, and thoughts come in, and you're like, "Oh, go away! I'm trying to meditate," and you're trying to push them away, push them away, push them away, and sometimes they just come flooding in, and that's okay, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's part of the experience, and it's also an opportunity. I think that's also another takeaway is when we recognize ourselves thinking, it's actually a beautiful opportunity to come back to the breath or come back to a sound or a mantra. Our thoughts are there to teach us, not to harm us, and that's a good way to look at it as well.
Yeah, that's yeah. So if you keep in mind that, okay, I'll come back to that breath, or just say, okay, I acknowledge you, I acknowledge that thought, and then come back to the breath.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What are the most significant changes like one could expect in our lives once we begin to regularly practice meditation?
Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful journey. And initially it may be something simple. It may be something you find you're listening to your partner a little bit better, or you're less stressed in traffic, for example, or before you jump on a call. It might start like that. And I always encourage people to simply ask themselves, why do you want to meditate? And whatever the answer is, let that be your initial reason for meditating. And with time, the changes may and probably will become more significant, such as a deeper connection with yourself, a deeper connection with a divine source, if that's your path, a deeper connection with your partners and your own emotional resilience. But initially, it might just soften the edges, and you may find that you're less worried about things.
Your experience when you first meditated, what was that like for you?
I fell asleep.
Good for you. You must have needed it.
Yeah, I fell asleep a lot. I would just lay down. I didn't sit up. I remember listening to a CD that a friend had given me on mindfulness, and I found the woman's voice very relaxing, And then with time, it was a lot of starting and stopping and starting and stopping, and it wasn't consistent. But once I committed to a consistent practice, I remember noticing one day I was driving in Florida. I was here in Miami, and I realized I wasn't annoyed with the traffic. And I thought, this is interesting. And then I found I could listen to my mother, for example, without getting annoyed. And I started to notice there was a calmness in me in regular situations, in past situations where I had maybe been triggered, that were suddenly disappearing or lessening. And that has continued, and my relationship has definitely grown significantly. But those were the first few signals, for sure.
So if somebody comes to you and says, I can't meditate, I cannot meditate, I'd like to, but I can't, what do you say to them?
I say that's okay. If you don't have to, if you're coming to me and you're asking that question, what there must be a reason you're asking the question. Do you want to meditate? And if the person says yes, then I say, okay, then let's start with something very simple. Maybe it's a minute, maybe it's walking, maybe it's just spending some time in nature. But if I've approached them, for example, and they no, their wall is up and they can't do it, they just don't want to, then that's okay. I respect that, and they may have another outlet that they choose, to find some sort of peace.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you believe that your meditation experience